Hello, lady.
Hello, darling heart. Look at you with your tank top and your earrings. And
It's not a tank top.
it's not okay.
It's my nightgown, which I'm a little too big for. You should see my boobs in this thing. Oh my God, it's ridiculous. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
So you're in cocktails and pajamas mode.
I am. Well, you know what? I never really get a chance to wear these because I don't go anywhere. And I'm like, I'm wearing
They're
my big blue
gorgeous.
bottles tonight.
They are gorgeous. I love them.
Thanks. Yeah.
It's good to
Yeah,
see
they were from
you.
back in the day when I was making jewelry. So, long time ago.
Beautiful. It's
Thanks.
good to
Thanks.
see you. How are you
It's good to
doing?
see you. Doesn't it feel like more than a week?
Feels like a few months in a weird way.
It. I'm like, gosh, because before I signed on, I was like, did we meet last week? Like, I'm actually questioning myself. I'm like, did we do this last week? I know we did because we
Yeah.
posted it on Facebook, but I'm like, damn,
I know. I
it feels like
know.
longer. Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah, and I just wanted to set context. Like Richard and I are doing a cleanse this week. So it's pretty much been like juices, soups, shakes. It's like end of day 4, and I'm starting to feel that like and there's still like soup to make tonight from scratch and hopefully a bath in the stars for me. But I had a session with a friend right before, thinking I had scheduled it for 5, but clearly it was 5:30. And she used to be my PT person when I hurt my back years ago, but she was incredible. So we kept in touch, and then she started doing Akashic readings, craniosacral work, became like an osteopath, like all these cool things. So the session was a mix of all of that distance, healing. And I was just like, whoa, the kind of coming back to this world in like 20 minutes was like, whoa, okay, let's see how I do
Yeah.
coming in with you and how long between the two and the feels just from this week, just being a week, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. And how about you? What has been on your mind, your heart? What's been
Um.
important for you since I last saw you?
Well, I think I want to address and simply say that I'm thrilled and over the moon that yesterday happened without a hitch, or so it seemed to go without a hitch.
Yep.
Um, and I knew that I would be emotional, but I didn't realize how emotional you know, and so I just sort of wrote it out. I let the emotions come up and happen, and then once the daytime ceremony was over, I shut things off.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I didn't know what they were doing last night. Like I didn't even know I didn't know. I didn't really pay attention. And then people were commenting like, "Oh, Katy Perry and Bruce Springsteen and blah blah blah," and I was like, "What am I missing?" I didn't check it out anyway. I figured it'll be on YouTube. I can find it. So anyway, that was pretty phenomenal. It was really pretty special, pretty phenomenal. Um, and the other thing that I noticed is how and so I don't know that he did a memorial on Tuesday
Yeah.
night.
Yeah. The COVID memorial.
Oh my God! Like this is what a president does. Like this is what it is to be a leader of a country that's really hurting. You know.
Mm.
So anyway,
Compassionate leadership,
oh
right?
my God, and love and humanity and not ego. Like get the fucking like get it out. Just get rid of like seriously. because it
Mm.
doesn't have there's no place, it just doesn't belong. So anyway, yeah, I was just really moved yesterday by a lot of different things, and oh my goodness, and that little girl, that young woman, the poet laureate.
Oh my gosh, yeah. She was not only her words, right? Because as a lyricist, I'm like really listening on the words, but her delivery, that I'll call it like that flowetry,
Yeah,
what and the conviction behind it.
100%.
Epic.
Yeah.
Yeah. I feel you on that. I knew I was excited, right? I knew what I was excited about yesterday. But in seeing like each step in the tradition happen,
Mm.
I felt obviously there's relief with certain parts, like people leaving, where there was like such a relief, but also like a thud of like, now there's this grief and sadness and anxiety because now I can like exhale. That came up. And then I'm just geeky about like, oh, and then they walk up the steps and then they have to stand here. And then there's this tradition. And it kind of gave me this like, maybe not American heritage isn't the right word, but this these like timeless traditions of American history that feel like structures that feel solid and stable in that that's how we do it. These are rituals of change, right? In leadership. Um, and this is without smack talk, but like the moment that Kamala Harris walked Mike Pence down those steps to his car, there was a secondary relief I wasn't expecting to feel.
Mm.
When he got in the car and drove away, there was like a, oh, okay, like a deeper layer of exhale to not see the sights of him personally. That's just me.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And then the joyitude, right? Just the like, and the love. I think that's the one thing I named on my post was like, wow, I didn't realize how much I missed seeing the leader of the free world expressing and receiving love. That was a real deficit emotionally the last 4 years. The
Really was.
children don't seem loving. The like nothing feels cohesive, coherent, supportive. And yesterday it was like, it's like, they might not be our mom and dad, but like there's a certain level of like they kind of need to be okay for things to be okay after a stressful day
Yeah.
while leading the safety of the American people. So it was just, I don't know, I was really touched by that. The hugs in front of the White House and the like, just, I could see it in their eyes that they'd built something special
Mhm.
that they were leaning on in the midst of just sort of an extraordinary
Yeah.
life circumstance, you know?
Hmm. The word that comes to mind for me when you say all that, and talking about the traditions, the American traditions, and how this has been going on for many, many, many years and decades and whatnot, is patriotism. I'm like, that is what it is to feel patriotic and have respect for the flag and the country and the Constitution and all of it,
Mhm.
and for each other, instead of being out for oneself, but to across the board have respect for each other, no matter what side of the aisle who people are on. Um, yeah, really. I just think, yeah, um, they spoke it without speaking it, but of course they had words, but um, yeah, it really was in their actions, I felt.
Yeah. And I also felt empathy for Biden in the sense of, and his graciousness, I think, because
Yeah.
I think if you ever imagine becoming president, there might still be ego enough to be like wanting all the people and all the cheering and all the like the parade and the ball and the dancing, right? That's happened with like the Obamas and other inaugurations have had these festivities. And just to see him still really holding to the soul of it and being really gracious, like this is probably not how he wanted it to look or imagined it looking. I just can
Right.
relate to that feeling, right? And it's like, and yet that wasn't on display, that it was different. I mean,
Yeah.
it was on display, but it wasn't in his countenance, in his demeanor. None of that seemed to become, I don't know what the right word is, like an issue.
Yeah.
Right? Like his leadership still showed up.
Right.
And I just kept thinking, like, yeah, this is probably not what you expect. You know, you do expect to have those sweet, sentimental traditions that you can have outside of a pandemic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I think maybe, I don't know if this is the last thing, because I always think this is the last thing I'm going to say about it. It never is. But one of the things I definitely want to mention is that, when I woke up yesterday, I, for the first time, really felt in my bones and in my soul and in my spirit like I'm proud to be an American again. And I can't say that I felt that for a while. So it was just, it was refreshing to feel that again. I was
The
like, oh,
hopefulness too.
what's that?
I said, and the hopefulness of that
And
too.
the hopefulness of, yes, of it all. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. What a great day. It
Yeah.
was really lovely. Yeah.
And I also hold that for, I don't know what, 73 million people that might not have felt like a great day.
Yeah.
Right? For people who still feel unseen, unheard, disenfranchised in some way, you know, their candidate didn't win. And obviously, time will tell, but I do believe Biden's heart in like wanting to figure out how to make this work for everyone.
Hmm.
You know, there is still corporates, there's still a lot of funky players in our world, but I do hope that the people who don't feel seen and heard and who are freaking out right now do begin to feel taken care of under this administration and in this country. Period.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have to agree, but like I want you to have a job and healthcare and be able to feed your kids a million
Yeah.
percent.
Right.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And feel that in a really genuine way.
Hmm.
Like it's not just words.
Yeah.
Like this is truth. You really are cared about.
Yeah. And maybe we
Um,
haven't totally gotten you. Maybe you don't totally feel known and gotten. And like there's got to be a way that we can take care of everyone,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So how were your kiddos last night?
Oh my gosh, they were great under
Eh,
such, like I am blown away by them. They teach me something every day. Like here they are on Zoom with their guitar teacher, their drum teacher, their voice teacher, their bass teacher, right? They're all multi instrumentalists to be in the show. And like we're not teaching music so that they can play a show. We're playing a show so they can learn music.
mhm.
That's sort of the ethos, right? Like, oh, there's a show in 16 weeks. You got to learn these 16 songs, kind of a thing. And they did it in a pandemic, likely most of it at home study with us on Zoom, right? Which is like, what kid wants to do that?
Right. Right.
They
Right.
showed up week after week. They sometimes learned songs they didn't even like, right? It's like you're not going to like all the Van Halen
Of
songs you
course.
got. And they showed up in the rehearsal space, obviously socially distanced and masked, like masked to play a show.
Wow.
to sing, to play drums. I mean, the air equity on drums, because I used to play drums, like it's cardio, right? So
Yeah.
all
Yeah.
of that. And to do all that while you're having 50, 60 people watching you on live stream and you're not having an audience, like it just all blew me away because you know what? I know a lot of adult musicians who would have been really whiny
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah.
And these kids have not been whiny at all. If anything, they've been engaged and like,
Mm.
um, I don't know, just devoted to it. So they're teaching us, because the brand of the school is like, we want to create musicians other musicians want to play with. So it's
Mm.
like character, showing up, being on time, having your chords, knowing your lyrics, right? It's the like, we don't want you to be an ass musician when you get
Right.
out there. We want you to really be set up to succeed. And yeah, I just really kept thinking last night like, there are plenty of musicians that would have just whined their way through this.
Yeah.
And these are teenagers too. It's not like they don't have a lot going on.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
they're going to like 7, 8 hours of school. So yeah, pretty blown away. Obviously, there are moments where people forgot lyrics or things happen with being on the stage, but on the whole, like, and I know the kids, they'll come back and be like, oh, I forgot that one line, they'll be,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's like, but you did this like in the craziest way,
Right. Right.
but you did it, so hopefully they get the real metrics here
Yeah.
was their dedication. Thanks for asking.
You're welcome. Well, I mean, I know how important this is, not only for you as a teacher and your relationship with these students, but also, like you said, in this time, in this season that's been going on for almost a year,
Yeah.
and we've all had to manage it how we've managed it, and how, with all of it, like how well they did. That's really important. And so I know nothing about, except the movie School of Rock. I know nothing about, So it's interesting for me to hear that not only are you building them to be musicians, but all like well-rounded,
Yeah.
to be committed, to not like leave ego at the door, to know your lyrics, to know the music, and
Yeah.
and if you mess up, you got to move on. Like you just move on. You don't go back and redo it. You move, all of that. Like
Yeah.
and that they are being trained, if you will, to be musicians who can play with just about anyone. That's really awesome. That's
Yeah.
really, I think that's great.
Yeah, we all as teachers are like, man, we wish we had a school of rock when we were kids. We had garages, where you had milk
Right.
and cookies and you tried to play some stuff in somebody's
Yeah.
garage and hope you could figure out the song together, which was still better than nothing. I think
Right.
one thing that I'm also blown away with is the fact that these kids, some of them are coming in with like real stage fright, real, I don't know, just real elements that they feel are against them.
Mm,
And so that triumph,
that's huge.
yeah, yeah,
Good for them.
yeah,
That's great.
yeah, it is. It's cool to be around kids too because they have this purity, this love of the music. There's no um I don't know, they're not having to worry about the industry. They're not worrying about all these things that really should take a back seat. They're just
Right.
like, I freaking love this riff,
Right.
you know?
Yeah.
Mm,
Mm, yeah.
yeah.
Very cool.
I know yesterday was a big day. I'm curious if there's been like anything else that's been feeling important like in your field, in your world, in your heart.
Um, so I think I mentioned last time that I'm on a personal retreat.
Yes.
So that started yesterday.
Wow, I'm honored you're here.
Well, what we committed to and made a promise about was is to not do any work with our businesses.
Mm, mhm.
Um, and that's hard. That's really hard to do. Um, so far, so good. So far, so good. I'm just finishing day two, so what am I saying? I don't know. Oh my goodness! But what like, one of the things that I noticed yesterday is that if I allow the quiet to happen,
Mm.
I can really hear it. And so it's been really lovely. And I can't, in all honesty, I can't say I'm staying off social media altogether. Um, Although I'm on it much less, like yesterday and then today, even less so. And I'm like, wow, how I'm just seeing myself, I feel different, not feeling like I have to know and what the hell, like really, what is really going on in the world? Do you know what I mean? That's that important. There's nothing that's really that important. And I will find about it regardless, in some way, shape, or form. But it's just been um it's been a great way for me to take a closer look at myself
Mm.
and to go further and more deeper in to my heart. Um and yeah, I don't know that I have any more to say except that, and I'm just really enjoying it. Like I'm really thoroughly enjoying it, and like I'm hearing, because I say this to my clients all the time. I'm like, your spirit guides and spirit are talking to you 24/7. Like they always have something to say, and it's entirely up to you and I to either hear them or not hear them. And if we're busy, we're not going to hear them. But if I slow down enough and I really clear my space so that I can listen and hear, I'm going to hear them. And it's just so fascinating because I'm like, I've been having this push pull back and forth about the 350.
Mm.
And the push,
Internally or outwardly?
that's a good question. I would say more outwardly than inwardly, and the outwardly is really about um remind like reminding myself, or spirit reminding me, that I am the visionary. This my job. I've already done my job, which is being the visionary. I've created the vision for this project mitzvah, 5D living, and whoever is going to be doing the work, they will find me. There's nothing else for me to do right now
Mm.
except and wait. And that's really, that's so do. I can't believe how hard that is, but it's really hard. So I added a couple more words for, I actually, I have them, I put them all over my apartment. So the words I'm carrying over from 2020 are divine abundance.
Mm. Love
For
it.
2021 are sacred living and manifesting, generosity, wholehearted love and acceptance. And then I just added self trust and spirit trust.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the faith walk.
Talk about having to walk the walk. Like, this is it. Like, it is happening. And oh my God. And I'm like, oh, okay. And it's so interesting to, again, like really having to force myself to get quiet so that I not only can hear myself, but I can see myself. So on some level, I'm witnessing myself in this process. I'm like, damn, damn, this is, it's hard and I can do it. I can do hard things. I can do hard things. Like it's not impossible.
Yeah.
Um, and I need to continue paying attention. I need to continue paying attention. Because that's where it is. It's kind of in between the lines, if you will. Right? Like, yeah.
Yeah, and I think what I'm hearing coming up, like for you, that I'm getting, from just what you shared is knowing your role in this vision, right? It's an inspired vision, knowing that your role is holding that vision, holding that container, holding the trust. And I can see that, like, I'm not going to say young, but like that youthful person who rocks the ops and logistics, maybe me 15 years ago, who just like has a hunger for that work, who loves getting into the weeds and the minutia and the details and all the research and all the fact finding and all the calls with the lawyers and there are people, I used to be one, that are like, gimme,
Right.
that is like my jam, right? It's not us. But the fact that someone like that is just going to be over the moon
Yeah.
to work on something so inspiring, so life giving, and so meaningful with their gifts.
Mm.
Yeah. And I also hear you on how hard it is to just be like, oh, there's no more to do. But doing is sort of what we're conditioned for.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
Can I ask
Mm.
you? Well, let me know if you need a minute, but I wanted to ask you something about spirit guides after that.
Sure. No, what I wanted to say is I'm appreciating the way that you reflected that back because I don't know that I would have had the same words, but I'm really appreciating hearing your perspective on it. Um, yeah, yeah, So yeah, because I say to my clients all the time, spirit doesn't lie, and and this is it's one thing to talk, and it's a whole thing to walk in, like really live it. Um, and it's interesting. So the download that I literally just got in the moment is, you were born to do this. You were born for this. I'm like, wow. Okay. 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 All right. I got it. That's big.
Yeah.
Whew.
Mm.
Yeah, that's big. You were born for this.
Woo! Undeniable. Well, and that's where I also feel like the divine recipe of this obviously is the amazing benefit it will be to the people who receive it, the amazing architecture that will be created by, again, this amazing logistical people to support your vision, and like who you get to become in the process. That to me is like the little whisk in the recipe,
Yeah.
of like who you really are and who you get to become more of
Yeah.
going through this feels big to me.
Yeah. It's really yummy. It is. It's so yummy. I don't even know what to do with myself some days. I'm like, wow. Yeah. So you had a question about spirit guides.
I did, because you mentioned it a little earlier and you said, that your spirit guides are all like talking to you 24/7. And I find they clearly are, because when I do a shamanic journey or an Akashic records or any form of supportive readings, like clearly there are things that need to be said, like that are like, oh, thank God she's listening. Let's throw some of this her way. But I also don't feel like I get those intuitive hits as intuitive as I feel I am when I'm coaching or reading people in my own way. I don't feel like I'm like, oh hey, there's my granddad. Like, let me hear what he's saying. So I'm just curious, your first baby step for someone who's like, I don't hear anything. Like, I don't know what that is.
Yeah. Do you know who your spirit guides are?
I feel like I've always sensed like a medicine man, like a shaman type native medicine man, and sometimes those like held visions of someone else is holding me.
Mhm.
And then
And you've been in communication with this shaman, this medicine man?
vaguely, very like, oh, I see him. I'm walking over that bridge. Like, I know I'm supposed to go over and sit with him. But not like, maybe it's just practice and more stillness, but not in a real, like, oh, cool, I can tap into that anytime.
Yeah. Um, so I'm getting messages, but I'm gonna put that aside for the moment. And what I'm gonna say to you is that um, there's a lot of there's discernment that happens, right? So we can kind of clear the cobwebs, and we know what a message is, as opposed to something we think that may be coming. Okay, maybe our own thought. Okay, so there's some discernment that needs to happen, and it's like a muscle memory.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So the more you utilize it and the more you exercise it, the quicker it's going to come. And it's going to work like rote, if you will, for lack of a better word.
Mm-hmm.
It'll become very much automatic. So I just added four. It's interesting, during a meditation today, I just added three more spirit guides to my team. So I now have seven. And so my father's been my go-to I mean, probably a week or two after he passed. Like for over 13 years. So he's been with me for a long time. And his mother, Vivian, who I never knew, she died very young. Um, she probably was with me before my father was, but I wasn't aware of it. And then in the last, I'm going to say year, no, a couple years ago, this other spirit guide came in, and I don't really see him as a person like my father. I can picture his face. Vivian, I can picture her face. But this other spirit guide called Glenn, I see as a very white kind of light beam that comes down. So I utilize my different spirit guides for different things. I call them in for different support when I'm working with different people. Um, and I would say my top two are my dad and Vivian.
Mm-hmm.
When I feel like I need some nurturing, I call on, her name is Pearl. She was when my father was stationed in Panama. We lived in Panama for 4 years, and my mom was a third shift nurse in an ER on the army base. And so we had Pearl, who was helping to raise us. Um, so she's a recently, like, she's a kind of a recently added spirit guide in the last 2 years or so, and I find a lot of comfort and nurturing. Like, I get nothing but, like, because she has this real soft,
Yeah.
supple kind of bosom and body, and just like a love bug, you know.
Yeah.
And so when I need that, that's who I kind of call on. I hope this is helping. I don't know if this is helping or not.
So I'm hearing that you kind of also know what they provide for you. So you
I
know,
know exactly what they provide for me. Um, because and I've been very specific with them.
mhm,
So the history, like, there's a relationship. For me, that's how I have utilized my spirit guides. There's a relationship that I have with them, specific for specific things. Um, yeah, so your because I can tell you right now, like, I can see the medicine man, like I see the shaman, and I'm also two, three. I'm also seeing, like, I want to say two, maybe three others. Two are female figures, like, an auntie, um, or you know how we don't necessarily, like, maybe not a blood relative, but someone who was like an auntie to you. Um, like advisory kind of supportive advisory kind of, mm, oh, like, um, um, yeah, someone whose advice, and there's another word I'm thinking of, it. It's not coming to me right now. But someone whose advice you really respect and you trust.
yeah.
You know who this person is?
I was thinking as you were sharing, like, I was like, oh, cool, it could be family. Like, I'm thinking, is it going to be a centaur? Is it going to be an elf? Right? Like, I start to go out there when I'm thinking of
Oh,
spiritual guides. And when you started naming your father and your was it Vivian, your
uh-huh.
grandmother? I was like, oh, like I definitely feel like I can always talk to Debbie. Like, and I don't know if she's in my head or it's just I know her well enough that like I
Yeah,
know what she would say to me
yeah.
in crises and in moments. Um, and then I was like, oh, my father's father. Like I always feel my grandfather, I would say all
Mm,
the time, but when I need that kind of nurturing, because he was like a mystic, poet, Sufi, like he had that sort of intuitive medicine man of that heritage. Um, yeah, I can't think of another female, but when you were saying that, I was like, it's interesting that in really difficult times, I can hear Debbie.
mm,
Where with my grandfather, he seems to kind of show up when I'm in a shamanic journey and someone's like, "Oh, your grandfather's here," right?
mm.
So it might just be the relationship building that is what I'm hearing you say too, of like how long I didn't get to spend a whole lot of time with my grandfather, given just the war and the separation and the years that passed. But yeah, thank you, because I do trust her counsel and I trust her perspective.
Yeah.
And I trust when she calls bullshit on stuff,
Mm-hmm.
because that's what she did in my life. Like, had my back.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So, yeah. Can I say a little bit more?
Yeah. I also just want to say the shaman normally is just like, just come sit by the fire. He's not like announcing anything or giving any advice. He's just just sit, be still,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. And it,
to
and
do.
and what I'm getting is that, to be sitting to be sitting amongst in his presence. I'm calling it's a male, right? Like,
Mhm.
okay. So to sit in his presence, in his simply in his energetic presence, you're going to receive his wisdom. That's huge. I can't I can't, I mean, it feels really like it feels big, meaning like there's a lot of wisdom to behold, and it also feels like it's tangible, it's gettable. You really can know how to take it in.
Well, and it's a
That is the
quiet
right thing.
wisdom, which is nice, like a quiet wisdom that's not like told to you. It's just like, just sit next to me by the fire.
Yeah,
Like, that's all you need to do.
there's nothing else to do.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
almost like the download or the transmission is his way of being.
yeah,
The steadiness that comes with whatever wisdom he has, but it's the steadiness that anchors me. Thank you. I didn't expect a reading. I was just like, how do I do this more often? Because this sounds juicy to me
yeah. So
and
I did
super
want to say,
nourishing.
oh, oh, good. I'm glad. So Debbie, you have a little bit more to say about Debbie.
Hmm.
When you're working with clients and when you're working with clients and you feel a little stuck or you're not sure
Yeah.
to take a left turn or a right turn or whatever, call on her. Because, first of all, nobody, I mean, yes, your clients look to you for support and advice and, all
Mm.
that. And they also don't expect you to have the answer, the response right away.
Yeah.
So take, like, it's important to take a moment and to listen because I mean, our spirit guides are hanging, they're listening, they're with us all the time. And if we really get quiet enough and we're like, okay, I'm open to receiving, the information will come through.
Thank you.
100%. And it happens.
I
Yeah.
love having an expert coach to check in with, because I will not, and tell me if this is something you can relate to. I will sometimes not take a breath to be polite and to keep going.
Mhm.
Like, there's something awkward about the silence. There's something awkward about me not knowing, right? So I will
Yeah.
kind of lunge forward, but then kind of be not fully in my gut, in my instinct, in my intuition.
Yeah.
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 Thank
Have
you.
you watched my session yet?
No, I can't wait to watch it this weekend.
Okay, so watch it. And the reason I'm saying watch it is because there's a lot of quiet that because I am literally a conduit. I am a vessel. I'm getting information, it's coming through and it's coming out of my mouth. That's what's happening. So and like you, it took me a while it took not a long time, but I was like, gosh, there's a lot of quiet here and but whoever is across from me
Yeah.
really understands that I'm channeling. And if I'm channeling, that means I have to listen. You using your intuition to hear spirit give you the information, you have it's not gonna happen unless we're quiet.
Yeah. So I'm just noticing like I trip up on being polite and like conversational. And I'm hearing you say like, but the other person's probably going to get that you like need that. Because when I have people pause in a reading or something, I'm not going,
Of course.
I'm just like, oh, they're getting something, they're gathering something.
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you feel a difference between intuition and gut? Are they one and the same to you, or are
They're
they
the same
different?
thing.
They are.
They're the same thing. Yeah. I mean, so gut is well, they're both kind of, I mean, they both kind of have a physical presence, if you will, but like I typically if I'm in a situation and I feel something in my like it, and I'm like, oh, something feels off. I will literally feel it in my gut or my chest. Like, and if I notice that I'm breathing more shallowly, I'm like, there's something going on here, and I gotta pay attention. I gotta look around, and I gotta see what's going on. And then I mean, it's literally a matter of seconds. Like, this is all very quick, matter of seconds, and I'm like, okay, get quiet. I listen. I'm like, oh, okay, and then I reassess the situation. Um, I don't know if that's helpful or not, but that's they
Yeah.
work together. They work in tandem, if you will.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm almost feeling like not a toggle between, but like a quick flicker between the two because
Yes.
I feel the difference between like when I'm in the shower and I intuit like, oh, I should check in on this person. Whereas like sometimes like the gut instinct feels like something's off here. And then my intuition can kind of come online and be like, let me interpret that.
Yeah.
So I was just curious if that's just me, where the gut feels quick, a like a quick nanosecond moment of like, then that needs to be interpreted like
Mhm.
by another part of me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where my intuition can come online on its own, but my gut seems to need the teamwork.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Thank you. I love getting a quick tutorial on just it's such a rich conversation to me. This whole other place we can receive support from. And I say that especially now where so many people are alone
Mhm.
or feel alone, right? I heard from a friend today who said it's been rough because she lives alone. And I know her to be a very social being. Um, and I feel like what great medicine to be like, oh, but you're not alone. And there are, you know, people who care about you that you can connect with.
Hmm.
Like, especially right now,
Yeah.
that's a huge medicinal tool.
It really is. It really, really is. Yeah.
I'm glad you're sharing it just so that anyone watching this goes, oh, okay. Like, yes, I might not get a hug from 20 people, but I could really sit and converse with someone
Yeah.
or
I
hear.
mean, we've been doing this for many, 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 many weeks, couple months, like maybe many months. I don't even know. I'm like, how long have we been doing this? I really don't even know. And it doesn't even matter how long, but I'm just like, wow, we have really committed. And I'm just feeling the depth of gratitude for the both of us showing up and the importance of showing up in relationship. There's nothing like it, you know? And so, um, I think I shared either, I don't know, recently how I mean, it's literally taken me a lifetime to create these relationships that I have in my life that are really vital for my well-being, you know? I don't know where I would be or who I would be or what I would be doing without them. I mean, I really, really mean that, you know, and I don't just talk off the cuff. It's really true. And so I'm like, wow, I need it. And it needs work. I need it cultivated. We both need to, in order to make it happen, it's not just going to magic because you can't just, snap your finger and be like, oh, here we are. No,
Right.
I'm up for it.
I agree
Takes
with
work.
you wholeheartedly. The lifetime piece of being discerning enough, seeing who your diehards are, like seeing who the people are that are willing to celebrate and cry and change with you and watch you change and all of that. And then something I heard at the relationship school was sort of this idea that, we are still then farmers of that relationship. We still have to farm together. Like we have 100 acres of land, you and I,
Yeah.
there's work for that to be
Yeah.
tilled, planted, harvested, right? That there is a bit of the law of the farm. It's like what we put into it is also what we get to receive from it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I find that healthy. I find that gives responsibility and ownership and a collaborative feeling that
Yeah.
we get to co-create this friendship.
Right. Yeah.
You know, it doesn't just happen. It's not like guaranteed.
Right. It's really not.
Mm.
It's really not. And I'm sure you've been in other friendships, relationships where it was very one-sided. And that's painful. To be the one who's always reaching out and always asking how the
Yeah,
person is and never getting that back, and I'm like, I'm done with that. Like I've
yeah.
I've spent a lot of time and money and energy on that. I'm no more. Yeah.
I own setting up that power dynamic so that I could be a giver and not deal with the messiness of receiving. Like
Mm,
when I look back, it's like I set up being the nurturer and the one who gave and set up those roles in a way because it felt safer to me. Like I know I can give, but I don't know
hmm.
how to totally be vulnerable and receive. That's kind of
Yeah.
where I was at then. And as I learned to share more about myself and be a little bit more visible with my friendships, I got to see the friends who like welcome that warmly and celebrated, like, oh, hey, there you are. Cool. And the
Yeah.
ones that were like, oh, wait, but it's about me. It's been about me. Right. And it's like, oh, yeah, whoops. Well, we're changing that chronic role.
Yeah.
Either you're in or you're not. But I think for those of us who overgive or have, there's work to do to be able to receive, to have mutuality
Right.
in friendships, in relationships, right? It felt really shaky and vulnerable to me to let people see me and then receive from them because I didn't know what I was going to get from them. I didn't know what they were going to give
Right.
and if it was
Right.
going to be what I needed or, right?
Hmm.
And yeah, I just think it's a wonderful journey for someone who might be in that position to be like, oh, but if I do open up, I get to see who my first chairs are.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
And then using that same metaphor, because I've used that metaphor for the last several months, but like, do we harmonize?
yeah.
Because there has to be a harmonization that happens, or else what is there?
Well, and
You
if there
know,
isn't, like, how does you end up feeling? Do you notice it in your body? Because I feel like you're very aware. If you're in a convo that doesn't feel nourishing, do you start to feel the
100%.
wilting or the,
Yes. 100%. Yeah. Yeah. And so then if and when that happens, I go back to the drawing board and I'm like, let's reassess. Like, is this something that I really intuitively feel that will work? Does this have does this have a future? Does this have longevity? Whatever. Like, can we work through this, whatever this is? And if not, I'm gonna let it down. I'm gonna let go of it, but I'm gonna let it down easy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm. That comes back to me of like even in relationships of any kind, like that there's two willing people coming to the table to learn and to also really like shift with each other. We're like not going to be the same people year after
Right.
year. So it's like
Right.
how much of a dance, how much flexibility and adaptability and nuance
Yeah.
is possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Ah,
thank you for this. I didn't think I could make like even 25 minutes. I almost thought to reschedule because I was like, I don't know. I'm just like out of it. And I feel so much more replenished.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Something I did
I,
trust my instinct that said, oh, should I text her and see if we could reschedule or should I cancel? And it was like, nope. It was
I'm
just,
so glad you didn't. I'm so glad we did. We kept on.
yeah. I had that
Yeah.
voice in my head that was like, nope, you will replenish through it.
Yeah.
instead of thinking like that's one more thing, you know.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was so good to be with you and to kind of just follow the flow of the
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feels really good. I'm gonna take the kind of out of there. Like it feels really good to just be in a, I don't know, it's like being in
In
tune.
the flow. Just
Yeah.
being in the flow.
I almost pictured us like on, some kind of whitewater rafting in like one of those double things. And we're just like, woo, woo. That's
Yeah.
what you mean by do we harmonize?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Mm,
I love you.
mm, love you too. So glad that we're doing this.
Me too.
Mm.